Let's have our weather watchers weigh in. Is it raining where you are? Oh, it's pouring the 508. It's sunny in Virginia. That's good. Wait till winter. We'll have our snow watchers. It's gonna be great. Good morning as folks are joining. So good to see so many folks here this morning. And extra thanks to everybody who came to Mechanics Hall in Worcester on Thursday for the Early Childhood Summit. It was incredible. It was a great day. So great to be in a real room in real life, even though we said we could build community in a Zoom room. But really, so happy that we had the opportunity to see folks. So stay tuned for the next. We'll have a virtual meeting in December for the early childhood agenda. But today we are so excited to welcome to the 9:30 call the Early Childhood Policy Pathways Fellowship Fellows. And yay, that's right. Thank you, Emily. That's exciting. Woo! So we have all five fellows and Ann Kaufman, who is the coordinator. And I'm going to just do a quick intro and if folks have seen the announcement, that the Early Childhood Policy Pathways Fellowship provides recent higher education graduates with valuable real-world experience and pathways to leadership. The five inaugural Pathways Fellows, of course, I had to let people in, joined three early childhood organizations and one state agency as full-time employees. They started in September 2025 and they'll be there till April 2027 and will receive direct support from the fellowship coordinator based at Strategies for Children. So, Strategies is leading the fellowship in partnership with the Massachusetts Department of Early Education and Care, East Boston Social Centers, and Edward Street. So, we are going to turn things right over to the fellows. And the first question, as you know, that I ask all 9:30 callers is for each of you to tell us a little bit about you and how you came to be in your current role. And why don't we start with the folks at EEC? So, Ariana and Regina.
Sure, I can start. Thanks, Amy. Hi, everyone. My name is Arianna Burnham, and I'm one of the Early Childhood Policy Pathway Fellows. I'm currently at the Massachusetts Department of Early Education and Care, working under Ashley White on the research team. Um, I graduated this past May with my master's in education policy from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And while I was there, I had some different research assistant positions. I did some research on city government best practices as well as teacher recruitment. And before grad school, I was working at a college access nonprofit. And then when I graduated, I knew I wanted to work somewhere with proximity to government or policy making. And I'm really excited to have ended up at EEC. I'll pass it to Regina.
Hi everyone, I'm Rejina Tabay. I'm also at EEC. I work in external engagement with Eugenia Soiles. Um, Kind of finding myself in this role, I had various roles in after school and early ed, and then I kind of founded myself wanting a degree that was a little more values based. So I ended up doing an MSW at Boston College, and then got a certificate in early ed policy and leadership. And I seemingly have not looked back since. Thank you.
Thanks, Regina. Let's go to Eliza and Edward Street.
Hi, everybody. My name is Aliza Kopans. I am a policy fellow at East Boston Social Centers. Amy, you have so much to keep track of, so no worries at all. And I'm working
What
to
did I
bring
say? Eastbo. Oh, yeah, I said the
Edward
wrong
Street.
thing. I
Starts with
was
the same
reading it
letter.
too. Thank you, Eliza.
And working to bridge community needs with what's happening in our legislative spheres. I just graduated from undergrad studying public health and Spanish from Brown University this spring, and I really could not imagine something I'd rather be doing right now. And at a moment where there is so much fear, to be showing up every day alongside the policy fellows and alongside the amazing folks at the centers and thinking about how do we make people's lives a little bit easier has felt so deeply meaningful. And the social centers were founded in 1918. And so get to be a part of an organization that for a century has been such a backbone of the predominantly immigrant East Boston community and working to cultivate community, joy, belonging, even in moments where things feel really hard and we need to address immediate crisis, to still think about how can we create a space where people want to show up in joy and happiness. And to get to be doing this work and thinking about how do we make sure our youngest kids are well is so intersectional at this moment in time. And just so grateful for Commonwealth Children's Fund and for everyone at Social Centers and Strategies for Children for making this possible. And so excited to share a little bit more with all of you today about our work.
Thanks, Eliza. Let's go to Sierra.
So good to be here. My name's Sierra Rainville. I'm the Early Childhood Policy Pathways Fellow at Edward Street in Worcester. We do a lot of convening work, building partnerships with others throughout the early childhood ecosystem, and engaging in advocacy work as well. I started my time in early childhood at a nature-based early childhood program in Vermont and just absolutely fell in love. And then I taught preschool here in Cambridge and pursued my master's at Harvard in human development to pivot to some more systems level work and do something at the intersection of research and policy and practice. And working at Edward Street as part of this fellowship has really given me the opportunity to do that in a way that's really grounded in community and values the voices of the community so much, which I really care deeply about. So,
Thanks so much, Sierra. And let's go to Shaakira Parker, and then we'll go to Anne.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. I'm Shaakira Parker. I'm the Early Childhood Policy Pathways Fellow at Strategies for Children. I'm currently a third-year PhD student at Brandeis in social policy with a focus on children, youth, and families. I just finished my master's in social policy, so the first 2 years of courses, and now I'm in the proposal phase of figuring out like what it is that I want to focus on. I'm really interested in the intersection of early childhood mental health and early childhood education, more specifically focused on early childhood exclusion practices. How do you reduce and prevent that through policy and practice, particularly like the disparities within there, and thinking about like the soft exclusion practices and how you quantify and look at that. I've weaved back and forth between early childhood education and early childhood health and mental health. I started as a preschool teacher, but even before that, I worked in a childcare center when I was an undergrad. And then when I was a preschool teacher, I like saw a lot of like system issues and like areas with like an EI and how do you talk to parents about stigma. So then I decided to get a master's in public health. And then I kind of put me a little bit on the policy trajectory. I worked as a policy associate for a children's hospital, a lot more like local level policy and advocacy, and then branched out to broader public policy at the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. Still kind of working on early like child health projects, so never quite moving away from the children's aspect. And then I decided I wanted to get more research experience, which led me to my PhD and um, back into the early childhood education space. But I'm really excited to be with Strategies. I wanted more like learning about Massachusetts and the early childhood context here, and more of like the relationship building and understanding how policy connects to advocacy. And so I couldn't be at a better location with Amy and Titus and Marissa and Daenerys. So excited to be here.
Thanks, Shakira. And Shakira had her debut as Team Strategies for Children on Thursday, where she moderated one of the panel discussions at the Early Childhood Summit. All right, Ann Kaufman, bring us home.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. My name's Ann Kaufman. I use the She series. I'm the Policy Pathways Fellowship Coordinator. I'm also pursuing a master's in public policy at Heller School at Brandeis. Prior to this, I worked at Jumpstart as a site manager in Lowell and Lawrence. So shout out to Lowell and Lawrence, where I partnered college students with preschoolers.
Great. Well, thanks to each of you for your introductions. It's so great to have you all here. We even know logistically to get 6 people on the call in one time is a miracle. So when we think about you just started in September, and each of you have come from a different kind of higher education experience. Can you talk a little bit about the theory versus practice? How have your academic experiences differed from your current work so far? What has aligned? What has surprised you the most? And this is one of my questions I've been asking students when I am teaching. What is one thing that you've learned that you couldn't fully appreciate from listening to a lecture, reading a book or an article, or hearing from a guest speaker? So tell us about this theory to practice connection. And anyone can go.
I'm happy to get us started here.
Great.
This job is public health in action, which has been so, so cool. In order to thrive, a child needs not just access to affordable, high quality childcare, but they also need food on the table that night, and they also need access to healthcare. And the parents need to be well enough to show up and engage with their kids. And at a moment where so many people are really scared to see the impacts that that has kind of across the board, and then to think about the role of everyone from an individual to a community-based organization to our local and then federal government, and ensuring that people are well in ways that they want to be has just been pretty exceptional to see that outside of the classroom, and this feeling of college actually prepared me for this, which at moments in sitting in lectures over the past 4 years, I felt a little doubtful. And so now to be getting to watch that translate so directly has felt really meaningful. And hearing people's stories, I think, has felt the most impactful and like something that you can't quite get, even if you're just reading an article. And my role is in direct response to community members' requests for a designated policy person and for somebody to ensure that our community members' lived experiences are being heard by our lawmakers, by people with more financial, political power. Um, and so to get to be every day, whether it's engaging with teachers who work in the social centers or community members at our farmers markets or other folks at conferences, of hearing these personal stories and the narrative behind a lot of the data that's coming out or behind things that we can feel sometimes far removed from, that I think is an invaluable experience. Um, and so feel very grateful for what college prepared me for and feel very grateful to be outside of the classroom and applying it right now.
Thanks, Eliza.
I have, during my master's program, we learned a lot about the power of uh, thinking about the entire early childhood ecosystem and all of the partners that can come into that. And that was a really exciting idea to me. And getting to do this work and seeing how central and powerful partnerships are to doing this work and doing it well and doing it sustainably has been really, really exciting. As well as the fuel that comes with making those partnerships and working together with people on a common issue and all bringing our different levels of expertise in to make things better for children and families. It's been exciting.
I had the chance to sit next to Sierra at our pizza party following the summit, and you spoke about kind of like just starting, last month, then being at the summit in Worcester, and there was a panel focused on the connections in Worcester, and you just remarked about how, that was so powerful for you to kind of come into the organization and be in the meetings and taking the notes, but then seeing all the connections. So,
Mhm.
thanks so much for sharing that. Others on theory to practice?
I can go. I feel like I've talked about this before, but it's just like understanding the context behind things. So like in school, you get the vocabulary and like you know how to talk about things and you know what the programs are because you're reading about it, but you don't hear about all the like behind the scenes of like how does this actually work? What did it take to get this put in place? The relationships, the connections, the context of how things are actually going. And I feel like I've appreciated that, like being in the meetings and hearing the conversations between different groups and how things are connected, or the history behind what it took to get that program or policy in place, I feel like has been something that you don't really understand until you're in it. And so I've appreciated that a lot.
Thanks, Shakira. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would definitely echo what everyone has said so far. And I think that what I have been exposed to and worked on so far at EEC has aligned really well with what I learned in grad school and has made some of those sort of larger, like sometimes nebulous concepts feel more tangible. I think like I've been able to see how just how important the design of different like programs and policies are. Like small decisions make such a big difference in terms of like making the policies equitable and like foregrounding diversity and justice in them. I think like learning about just how, for example, in some of EEC's grants, how different things are prioritized, like providers with in areas with low child opportunity indexes, or how do we increase the reach in some of our more rural communities, and like those really tangible things that EEC and that other orgs do to make policies reach the people that need support the most and reach students furthest from opportunity. I think that's just been really rewarding to see how those things happen in action and be like, oh yeah, we learned about why this is so important in grad school, and now I'm getting to learn how it actually is done, like on the ground.
Great. Regina, anything to add?
Yeah, I resonate with like so much of what everyone has really said. I think for me, like I did an MSW, so like at its core, like really centers around like people, their experiences. And I think one thing that was always emphasized to me, like in every class, was like, but like remember practical experience, got into the field, like know what's happening. And I think that's been one of the things that I've really appreciated about working with Eugenia at EEC. Like I do a lot of work that kind of really meets with the people that we are working with. So like even last week, I like even though I knew like okay, practical experience, yeah. Um, going to be being able to be in a working group with like our FCC folks, like just seeing them like build their community, continuing to support each other, all their practical knowledge and like little tips and tricks that they've kind of built out through like their entire careers. Like even though I knew like we should like, oh, practical experience so important, like when you see it in action, like it's totally different than hearing about how important it is.
Thanks, Regina. And as you kind of think about this experience, and I should have said at the beginning, this fellowship we are so grateful to the Commonwealth Children's Fund for fully funding this first cohort of fellows and the coordinator, really making dreams come true to think about something that was an idea that we talked about in the spring, and now to have five human beings in positions and five four partners doing this work. It is incredible to kind of how quickly this all happened and how it is how we're so excited to be living out this dream. So thanks to the Commonwealth Children's Fund. When you think about the work, what are you hoping to gain from this experience and this fellowship? And also like what has been most helpful in your learning? So you're a month in, what are you hoping to gain and what's been most helpful?
I can jump in. I'm really looking forward to learning a lot more about policy. I know a lot about human development and about the experience of being a teacher, but policy is something I'm so excited to learn more about. And I'm specifically excited to learn more about how local needs and local innovations can drive policy change and center communities in changing policy.
And what has been most helpful? What has been helpful so far, Sierra, as you think about your experience?
Meeting with people, meeting with everyone throughout the Worcester community that touches the early childhood space and learning firsthand how their organizations work and do their thing within the whole system to support each other and create a really, really strong fabric of support for children and families and educators and everyone that surrounds them.
Great. Others, what do you hope to gain?
I can go. So I'm really hoping to gain, and I've been getting some of this already, just like understand, I've mentioned this before, understanding how the different like programs and policies, how early childhood advocacy and policy work in Massachusetts, but also like how it connects. So how like once a policy passes, the implementation and the advocacy, the efforts behind how that policy is working. Um, is it being implemented correctly? Like, what do we need to do? Like, what players need to be involved? Who do we need to talk to? Like, seeing how all of that works together, the connection between policy advocacy and lived experience. How do we bring the people who are affected by these policy and programs into this work? And so that's something I'm hoping to gain more experience with. I feel like you don't get the advocacy side of things in education. And so, and then in terms of, I guess that's learning and gaining, but I'm also wanting to build more of a network in Massachusetts. I'm still like 2 years in, so still pretty new. And so getting to meet people and building like relationships is something I'm hoping to also gain, which I am. So thank you.
Great. Ariana, Regina, what about you? What do you hope to gain?
Yeah, I would definitely piggyback off what Shakira shared in terms of just getting a better understanding of how all the different actors and stakeholders work together in the policy landscape and in ensuring that policies are reflecting, like Shakira said, like communities, like lived experience and community voices. I think I've already gained insight into that just through just hearing from different organizations in the field. So like on at the SFC summit on Thursday, just hearing about or Wednesday, hearing all the different no, maybe was it Thursday? Everything's blurring together. It
Who
was Thursday.
knows?
Just hearing just all the different amazing work being done by different types of organizations and targeting different kind of issue areas in early education, and then how EEC can, work with those organizations and ensure that, the work being done there is reflecting what's happening in the field. So that's been really cool to learn about so far.
Great.
Yeah, I have a very similar kind of experience with like Ariana and Shakira about like wanting to build that network, and like I feel like I'm already starting to see a lot of like people, familiar names in like every different meeting I'm in. And yeah, I'm also really enjoying getting to learn about the policy kind of process, especially like being in like kind of the exec branch, kind of learning about like what kind of goes into everything, like who's building what, and like what are we really thinking about the small little details. Yeah, so I think that's sort of been my experience with that.
Eliza, do you have anything to add? You kind of started out with this question too.
I think at this moment of man-made crisis, thinking about how do we address immediate needs and continue pushing for systemic change in early childhood policy is definitely at the forefront of my mind. And getting to show up and learn and listen has been so impactful in thinking about how to proceed there.
Anne, I'm going to come to you in a minute, but fellows, when you think about projects, you're working on a lot of different projects. You just started, but any indications of what's capturing your interest or things that you're working on that you can share? I think one of the things we're most excited about is to have fellows at a local kind of like an Edward Street, and then a direct service organization, and then a statewide advocacy and policy organization, and then inside government. Because you think about all the different pieces that have to come together to really get things done. So any projects or any things that you're exploring that you'd want to share with folks this morning?
My main project that is still in beginning stages will be gathering community stories in ways that feel safe and meaningful and empowering for our community members. And at convening for the social centers this summer, a woman who's an immigrant, a teacher, parent in our community was talking about how it's amazing to have politicians and researchers. And oftentimes these people don't have the lived experience of so many people that are being really impacted by our systemic choices and structures. And so finding avenues for folks to share their stories as they wish, and then share those stories with our partner organizations, with our legislators, such that they can have on the ground testimonials behind policy and different changes like that. So I'm really excited to help be that bridge.
Right? Other project ideas percolating?
Yeah, I can go for this one. So a lot of the work that I'm kind of focused on is like helping lead like working groups with Eugenia and like info sessions. So like getting the information out to people and also learning from people in the field, like about their own experiences to really influence policy.
Great. And I'm going to come to you now and kind of you sit in this very unique spot of working with the fellows, of kind of creating a community for the fellows. Can you talk a little bit about what has struck you over the past month as we started this work together?
Sure. Yeah, I have a very lucky role. But I think really trying to create meaning out of the experiences that folks are having at their host organizations because they're doing so many cool things. But really kind of pulling the top five bullet points essentially and creating some space to get each other's perspectives and learning from one another. I think there are so many, like as somebody that's going to grad school right now, there are so many minute differences within navigating academia versus being a practitioner. So how can we make those two come together and when to use what when, I think is a big piece of the work. And I think we're kind of creating that space together and creating a launching pad for everyone to become an effective policymaker within the space in Massachusetts.
That's great. And Anne, anything that you're looking forward to or you're excited about as we continue on? Anything
Yeah.
else? That's pretty exciting, but yeah.
I'm excited to see how I think there's so many cool things happening in Massachusetts in terms of policy and legislative work. And so how are those two paired together? I think of housing policy and creating integrative communities here in Massachusetts. Folks are moving or relocating to find cheaper housing. So how is that connected to EEC? And what are the work that we're doing to create that change? And who are the main actors? And I'm really excited to learn from everybody as somebody that's a long time listener, first time caller. I feel like I've learned so much in this space just through people's presentations and commenting on in or even coming off mute and chatting, even when you don't want to. I've really appreciated that. I don't know, the way that you all approach the work, and I've learned from that and how I choose to approach it as well.
That's great. Well, please keep the love and appreciation coming in the chat. We also are grateful to folks at like Mass Taxpayers Foundation, UMass Boston, other fellowship programs. We know Rennie has just started an early childhood fellowship. So we are excited to think about the potential for kind of all this incredible energy and talent that is having this opportunity to connect and to go deeper and to have this chance to better understand advocacy policy and how all these things work together. So please keep up the incredible work. The fellows are typically on the 9:30 call, but we wanted to make sure you came in the beginning. I'm sure we'll have updates from you throughout the year, and this year, next year, and just thanks all there's a lot of appreciation in chat. Tom wonders, am I the only one who feels like we need a fellows program to learn from these fellows? Yes, and just a lot of thoughts about how the inspiration. This week of the 9:30 call is packed. We also had Wednesday night have the 9:30 call in Espanol. So as you can see in our announcements, we're adding it all in one announcement. So please forward it to folks who you think might be interested. And we'll be back tomorrow here on the call with Aditi and Christy tomorrow. Have a great day. And thanks to all of the fellows and Anne for joining us today.